The silence was killing him. Henry stared at the coffee mug in his hands, steam rising like the last breath of hope he felt slipping away. Across the small kitchen table sat an empty chair, Emma's chair. 6 months since the accident, and he still set 2 cups every morning out of habit. "Daddy up!" Little Lily's voice cut through his thoughts like sunlight through storm clouds. At barely 2 years old, she didn't understand why Mommy never came home. She only knew that Daddy's eyes were always wet now. The job interview letter crumpled in his free hand. Today, in 3 hours, his last real shot at keeping their apartment, at keeping Lily fed, at keeping the lights on. The daycare center had closed his account 2 weeks ago. No payment, no service. No family nearby to help. No friends left who could handle a grieving man and his crying toddler. Henry looked at his reflection in the black coffee. A stranger stared back. Stubble that Emma would have playfully scolded him about. Eyes that used to laugh but now just existed. When did he become this hollow version of himself? "We have to do this together today, baby girl," he whispered to Lily, who was trying to climb onto his lap with her favorite stuffed elephant. "Daddy has to get this job. We need this." But as he held his daughter close, breathing in the sweet scent of her baby shampoo, a cold fear crept up his spine. What if they wouldn't understand? What if bringing a toddler to a corporate interview was the final mistake that sealed their fate? Outside, the October rain began to fall, each drop against the window sounding like a countdown to disaster. The elevator climbed to the 15th floor like it was carrying his coffin. Henry adjusted Lily's diaper bag on his shoulder and checked his tie for the 100th time. His reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a man trying to look professional while bouncing a restless toddler. The other passengers, sharp suits, perfect hair, confident strides, made him feel like a fraud. "Remember what we practiced, sweetheart," he whispered to Lily. "Daddy needs you to be very quiet during the meeting, okay? Just for a little while." But Lily was too, and tired and confused about why they were in this scary building with all these strangers. The interview room was worse than he'd imagined. 5 executives sat behind a massive mahogany table like judges at a trial. Their expressions ranged from polite interest to barely concealed annoyance when they noticed the child in his arms. "Mr. Wells," the woman at the center spoke first, Janet Morrison, the department head. Her smile was as cold as her gray suit. "We weren't expecting additional attendees." Heat flooded Henry's face. "I apologize. My childcare arrangements fell through this morning. I can assure you this won't affect my ability to focus on the position." The interview questions began. Standard interview fare about experience, goals, salary expectations. Henry answered with practiced precision, while Lily squirmed in his lap, growing more restless by the minute. He could see the panel's patience thinning like ice in spring. Then it happened. "Daddy potty!" Lily's voice exploded through the sterile room like a fire alarm. The silence that followed was deafening. 5 pairs of eyes stared at them. Someone cleared their throat. Another person shuffled papers with theatrical purpose. Janet Morrison's laugh was sharp, awkward. "Well, that's, children for you, right?" The other executives joined in with forced chuckles that felt like daggers. Henry's professional mask cracked completely. He saw himself through their eyes, a desperate man who couldn't even arrange proper childcare. A liability, a joke. "I'm sorry," he stammered, standing up with Lily. "I can finish the interview after—" No, that's quite all right, Mr. Wells." Morrison's voice was honey over ice. "We think we have everything we need. We'll be in touch." Walking to the elevator felt like a death march. The other candidates in the waiting room averted their eyes. The receptionist gave him a pitying smile that made his stomach turn. In the elevator, descending back to reality, Lily looked up at him with those innocent blue eyes that looked so much like Emma's. "Daddy sad?" He couldn't even lie to her anymore. The rejection email came 3 hours later. Henry stared at his phone screen until the words blurred together. "Thank you for your interest. Pursued other candidates. Wish you the best." The corporate language was so polite, so clean, as they swept his dreams into the trash. Lily napped fitfully on the couch, her stuffed elephant tucked under her chin. The apartment felt smaller than ever. Bills covered the coffee table like fallen leaves. Electric company, landlord, credit cards, each one a ticking bomb. 47 applications sent, 12 interviews, 12 rejections. Henry walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Milk expired yesterday, half a loaf of bread, some leftover mac and cheese from 2 days ago. He did quick math in his head. Maybe enough for 3 more days if they were careful. His phone buzzed, the text from his landlord. Rent notice tomorrow, no exceptions this time. The walls seemed to be closing in. He could almost hear Emma's voice. "We'll figure it out, honey. We always do." But Emma wasn't here to figure anything out. She was gone and he was drowning. What kind of man couldn't even provide for his own daughter? The question had been haunting him for months, growing louder each day. His friends had stopped calling. His brother lived 3 states away and had his own problems. His parents, well, they'd made it clear that he should have been more responsible before Emma died. Henry sank into the chair across from where Emma used to sit. The empty space felt enormous. Sometimes he caught himself talking to it, asking her what to do, begging her to come back and fix this mess he'd made of their life. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Emma's hands on his face the night before the accident, her voice soft but firm. "Promise me something, Henry. If anything happens to me, promise you'll keep fighting. For her, for both of you." He'd laughed then, kissed her forehead, told her nothing was going to happen. They had forever. Forever lasted 8 months. But what if she was wrong? What if some fights weren't worth fighting? What if some battles were already lost before they began? As if sensing his despair, Lily stirred on the couch. Her eyes opened slowly and she looked around the dim apartment with confusion that broke his heart. "Daddy." Her voice was small, uncertain. "Hey, sleepy girl. Mama coming home?" The question hit him like a physical blow. 6 months and she still asked, still waited, still believed in a miracle that would never come. "No, baby," he whispered, the words like gravel in his throat. "Mama's not coming home." But as he watched his daughter's face fall, watched her little world crack a little more, something shifted inside him. A flicker. A spark of the man Emma had married. Maybe he was failing, maybe he was broken, maybe the world was stacked against him, but this little girl was still here, still depending on him, still believing in her daddy even when he didn't believe in himself. And maybe that was enough to try one more time. Henry stood outside the office building at 7:30 a.m. before the rush of suits and briefcases began. In his hands, he held something that would either save them or destroy what little dignity he had left: his resume. But this wasn't the pristine document he'd submitted 2 weeks ago. This one was different. Attached to the top with a purple crayon-drawn heart was one of Lily's masterpieces, a stick figure family, Daddy, Mama in the clouds, and Baby, drawn in the fierce, unsteady lines only a 2-year-old could create. Below it, in his own careful handwriting, he'd written, "My daughter drew this yesterday. She wanted to help Daddy get a job so we can stay in our home. I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for a chance." The security guard recognized him. "Back for another interview, sir?" Something like that. The elevator riot felt different this time. No other candidates, no pretense. Just a father carrying his daughter and a piece of paper that held their entire future. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw him. "Mr. Wells? I don't show any appointments scheduled." "I know. I need 5 minutes with Miss Morrison. Just 5 minutes." She looked uncertain, reaching for her phone. "Sir, I really should, please." The word came out raw, desperate. "I have something I need to say." Maybe it was the look in his eyes. Maybe it was the way Lily chose that moment to wave at her with sticky fingers. Maybe it was just mercy. But the receptionist nodded slowly. "Wait here." 10 minutes later, he was back in that boardroom. But this time felt different. The air was charged with something he couldn't name. Morrison sat alone at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Wells, this is highly irregular." "I know." He set the resume on the table between them, Lily's drawing facing up like a flag of surrender. I came to apologize." She glanced at the paper, her face giving nothing away. "For what?" "For not being professional, for bringing my daughter to an interview, for being desperate enough to think you might care about my situation." He took a breath. "But not for being a father." Morrison leaned back in her chair. "Explain that." Henry felt the words pouring out of him like water through a broken dam. "2 weeks ago, you saw a man who couldn't get his life together, who couldn't arrange childcare, who let his personal problems interfere with business. And you were right. I was unprepared. I was scattered. I was everything you don't want in an employee. And now?" He looked down at Lily, who was quietly playing with her elephant, oblivious to the stakes of this moment. "Now I'm still all of those things. But I'm also a man who would do anything for his daughter, who works 18 hours a day because failure isn't an option, who solves problems with whatever tools he has, even if it's crayon drawings and desperate honesty." Morrison picked up the resume, studying Lily's artwork. "This is your sales pitch?" "This is who I am." Henry's voice cracked slightly. "I'm not the polished candidate you're looking for. I'm probably not the safe choice, but I'm the one who will never give up because she's counting on me." The silence stretched between them like a bridge made of hope and terror. Finally, Morrison spoke. "Mr. Wells, do you know why I agreed to see you today?" "No, ma'am. Because 15 years ago, I was you." Morrison's words hung in the air like smoke from a secret fire. 15 years ago, I was you. Henry blanked, trying to process what he'd just heard. This woman, with her perfect gray suit and corner office and command of the boardroom, had been where he was now? Desperate? Broken? Holding everything together with prayer and determination? "I don't understand," he said quietly. Morrison stood up and walked to the massive windows overlooking the city. For a moment, she looked less like the ice queen who'd rejected him 2 weeks ago and more like a person. Someone with scars hidden beneath the professional armor. "My daughter was 3 when her father left. No warning, no forwarding address, just gone." Her voice carried an old pain, carefully controlled, but still sharp. "I was 28, working as a junior analyst, making barely enough to pay rent. When she got sick and I had to miss work, they fired me." Henry felt something shift in the room. The power balance that had seemed so clear was crumbling like sand. "I took her to 17 interviews. 17. They all said the same thing. We need someone more dedicated to the position." Morrison turned back to face him. "Do you know what they meant by dedicated, Mr. Wells?" "Someone without complications. Someone without a child." Lily chose that moment to drop her elephant, and it rolled across the polished floor with a soft thud. Morrison walked over and picked it up, studying the worn gray fabric. "What's his name?" she asked Lily. "Peanut," Lily whispered, suddenly shy. Morrison smiled, the first genuine expression Henry had seen from her. "Peanut's very brave to come to such a big building." She handed the elephant back and looked at Henry with eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "Mr. Wells, what I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room." Henry nodded, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "I didn't just agree to see you today on impulse. After your first interview, I did something I've never done before. I looked into your background, not your credit score or employment history. I already had that. I looked into your story." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I know about Emma. I know about the accident. I know about the medical bills that ate through your savings. I know about the grief counseling you stopped attending because you couldn't afford it." Her voice was quiet, but relentless. "I know because I've been there. The only difference is I didn't have anyone to help me when I was drowning." Henry's mouth went dry. "Why are you telling me this?" Morrison returned to her seat, but something had changed in her posture. She seemed smaller now, more human. "Because sometimes the system breaks good people, and sometimes those of us who made it through have a chance to throw a rope to someone else." She leaned forward. "But I need to know you can catch it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this isn't over, Mr. Wells. What happened today was just the beginning. If you really want this job, you're going to have to prove you can handle more than a crying toddler in a boardroom." A chill ran down Henry's spine. "Prove how?" Morrison's smile was sharp now, predatory in a way that made him understand how she'd climbed to the top of this corporate ladder. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Come back tomorrow, and we'll see if you're really as resilient as you claim to be." "What's tomorrow?" "Your real interview, Mr. Wells. Today was just to see if you had the courage to show up." As Henry left the building with more questions than answers, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just walked into something much larger than a job interview. Morrison's words echoed in his head like a warning. What exactly had he gotten himself into?
Henry arrived 15 minutes early, but the receptionist wasn't at her desk. The lobby felt different, quieter, like the building itself was holding its breath. Lily sensed it too, clinging closer to his neck as they waited in the leather chairs that probably cost more than his monthly rent. At exactly 9 a.m., Morrison appeared, but she wasn't alone. 3 other executives flanked her, faces Henry didn't recognize from his first interview. Their expressions were unreadable masks, professionally polite but cold as winter concrete. One carried a thick file folder, another held a tablet, fingers poised like a pianist ready to play. "Mr. Wells." Morrison's voice was different today, formal, distant. The woman who'd shared her story yesterday seemed to have vanished, replaced by the corporate machine he'd first encountered. "Thank you for coming." They led him to a different conference room, smaller, no windows. The fluorescent lights hummed with an insect-like intensity that made his teeth ache. "Before we begin," Morrison said, settling into her chair, "I need to make something clear. What happened yesterday was unconventional. Today, we follow protocol." The man with the file folder opened it and spread papers across the table like a card dealer. Henry's resume, references, background check documents, his entire life laid bare in black and white. "Mr. Wells," the woman with the tablet spoke for the first time. Her voice could have frozen fire. "Your employment history shows significant gaps. I explained that in my cover letter. I was caring for my wife during her illness and after her death. We're not interested in explanations. We're interested in reliability. Your previous employer noted that you took excessive sick days." Henry felt heat rising in his chest. "My wife was dying. I took time to be with her." "Personal problems affecting work performance," the tablet woman noted, typing rapidly. "Mark that down." This wasn't an interview, it was an execution. They picked apart every decision he had made over the past 2 years. The medical bills that had destroyed his credit, the times he'd been late to work because Emma couldn't be left alone, the missed deadlines when grief made thinking impossible. Each question was a blade, carefully designed to cut deeper than the last. Lily began to fuss in his arms. The sterile room, the harsh voices, the tension radiating from her father. It was too much for a 2-year-old to bear. "Perhaps," Morrison said coldly, "we should have arranged for childcare." The words hit him like a slap. Yesterday's compassion had evaporated, replaced by the exact judgment he'd feared from the beginning. "I'm sorry," he said, trying to soothe Lily while maintaining eye contact with his interrogators. "She's usually better than this." "Usually isn't good enough in a professional environment," the file folder man stated flatly. That's when Lily started crying. Not fussing, crying. Big, scared tears that broke Henry's heart and shattered what remained of his composure. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to walk out with his dignity intact and never look back. These people didn't want to help him, they wanted to watch him break. But then he remembered Emma's last words, "Keep fighting." He stood up slowly, cradling Lily against his chest, whispering soft assurances that Daddy was here, that everything was okay, that they were going to be fine. The room fell silent except for Lily's gradually calming sobs. "Gentlemen, ma'am, I understand you have concerns about my qualifications. You're right to question my reliability, my credit score, my ability to balance work and family." He looked directly at Morrison, searching for any trace of the woman who'd shared her story yesterday. "But let me tell you what I learned in the last 2 years. I learned that showing up matters more than being perfect. I learned that love makes you stronger, not weaker. I learned that the most important deadlines aren't the ones on spreadsheets. They're the ones that involve being there when someone needs you." The tablet woman stopped typing. "I can't promise I'll never face another crisis. I can't promise my daughter will never get sick or scared, but I can promise that whatever challenges come, I'll find a way to handle them without compromising my work or my responsibilities to her." He shifted Lily to his hip, her tears finally stopping. "If that's not good enough for you, I understand, but I won't apologize for being both a professional and a father. The world needs people who can be both." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Morrison spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Wells. We'll be in touch." As he walked toward the door, Henry wondered if he'd just saved his dignity or destroyed his last chance at salvation. He was about to find out.
The call came at 6:47 p.m., just as Henry was heating up the last can of soup in his cabinet. "Mr. Wells, this is Janet Morrison." His hand trembled slightly as he answered. Lily was coloring at the coffee table, humming a song Emma used to sing to her. The normalcy of the moment felt surreal given what was about to unfold. "Ms. Morrison, can you be here tomorrow morning at 8? We need to discuss your position." Henry's heart stopped. Position, not application, not candidacy. Position. "Yes, ma'am, I'll be there." "Good. And Mr. Wells?" "Yes? Bring Lily. I think she'd like to see where Daddy works." The line went dead, leaving Henry staring at his phone like it might explain the impossible thing that had just happened. The next morning, Morrison was waiting for him in the lobby herself. No assistants, no entourage, just a woman in a slightly softer version of her power suit and an expression Henry had never seen before. "Follow me," she said simply. They rode the elevator in comfortable silence. Lily pressed her face against the glass, watching the city shrink below them. At the 15th floor, instead of turning toward the conference rooms, Morrison led them in the opposite direction. She stopped at a corner office with windows on 2 sides and a view that made Lily gasp in delight. "This is your office," Morrison said quietly. Henry's brain refused to process the words. "I'm sorry, what?" Morrison walked to the desk, a real desk, not a cubicle partition, with actual drawers and everything, and picked up a folder. "Your employment contract. Salary is 30% above what you requested. Health insurance starts immediately. And there's a daycare center on the 3rd floor." Henry sank into the office chair, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Yesterday you all but destroyed me in that room." Morrison's smile was sad and knowing. "Yesterday wasn't about the job, Mr. Wells. Yesterday was about finding out who you really are when everything goes wrong." She moved to the window, looking out at the city where somewhere, other single parents were probably struggling through their own impossible days. "Those 3 people yesterday, they weren't part of my hiring committee. They were actors, professional consultants who specialize in stress interviews." Henry's mouth fell open. "You hired people to torture me?" "I hired people to test you. There's a difference." Morrison turned back to him. 15 years ago, when I was where you are now, a man gave me a chance. Not because my resume was perfect, but because he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." She walked to a framed photo on the bookshelf, a young woman in a graduation cap holding a little girl's hand. "That's my daughter, Dr. Sarah Morrison, pediatric surgeon. She doesn't remember the days when we ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner because it was all we could afford. She doesn't remember me crying in the bathroom at work because I was so tired I could barely stand." Morrison picked up the photo, her thumb tracing the glass. "But she remembers that I never gave up, and now she saves children's lives for a living. That's what fighting for your family looks like 20 years down the road." Henry felt tears threatening behind his eyes. "Why me? Why go through all this trouble?" Morrison set the photo down and looked directly at him. "Because authentic vulnerability opened a door that polished professionalism never could. Because watching you comfort your daughter while 3 strangers tried to tear you apart told me more about your character than any reference check ever would." She paused, her voice growing softer. "And because sometimes the people who've been broken are the ones who know best how to build something strong." Lily had been playing quietly with her elephant in the corner, but now she toddled over to the big chair where her daddy sat looking stunned. "Daddy work here?" she asked, looking around the office with wide eyes. Henry picked her up, holding her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. "Yeah, baby girl, Daddy works here now." Morrison headed toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Mr. Wells. That second interview yesterday, you passed the moment you stood up and comforted your daughter instead of apologizing for her tears. That's when I knew you understood what really matters. As the door closed behind her, Henry sat in his new office holding his daughter, looking out at a city that suddenly seemed full of possibility instead of obstacles. 6 months ago, he was a broken man sitting at a kitchen table, staring at an empty chair and wondering if hope was just another word for delusion. Now he understood the truth Emma tried to tell him in those final moments. The cracks in your life aren't where you break, they're where the light gets in. "Daddy happy?" Lily asked, patting his cheek with her small hand. Henry smiled, the first real smile he had felt since Emma died. "Yeah, baby girl, Daddy's happy." Outside the window, the morning sun painted everything golden, and for the first time in months, Henry believed in tomorrows again. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up broken and ask for a chance to heal. Sometimes vulnerability is the strongest armor you can wear. And sometimes the people who seem to have all the power are just waiting for someone brave enough to remind them what it feels like to be human.